Welcome to the Return on Lifestyle podcast with Rey Descalso from Privada Wealth Management. In this podcast, we help you overcome financial worries and make sense of planning, investing, insurance, and banking. Join us for this journey as Rey draws from his expertise and interviews brilliant minds to help you enjoy life. The best is yet to come.
Hello and welcome to Return on Lifestyle with Rey Descalso from Privada Wealth Management. Today we're talking about de-taxifying your retirement. Good afternoon, Rey. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you very much for asking. I actually am better than usual because I just got back from about 5 days out of the office last week on a little vacation.
Nice. Where'd you go?
We went to the beach, actually to a little island called Turks and Caicos. And so we just kind of sat there on the beach and got a little bit browner and a little bit fatter and caught up on my sleep. So,
That sounds like a fantastic vacation.
Yeah.
You could use that about now.
Right. The problem, though, is when you're on vacation, you can just, at least in my case, you kind of just let yourself go. So it was like every meal was Thanksgiving. And now I think I need one of those celebrity Hollywood juice fasts or something, some sort of detox or something like that.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think that I didn't see what you just did there, by the way. Hey. The detox to the detax. Got it. Okay. That is a nice segue, by the way. And we were talking about detaxifying your retirement. What is the theory or the concept of detaxifying your retirement?
Sure. Well, kind of like when you find yourself eating lots of junk food, you find yourself feeling kind of weighed down by all those toxins in your body. So if you look at your retirement journey, imagine you're going on a long walk, but you're carrying around a lot of extra weight. You got this backpack, and what's it filled with? This big, huge, heavy backpack is filled with things that slow your retirement down, slow down your effectiveness, and make your journey more difficult. Let me give you some examples. Imagine a big old stone, and that one of those stones is inflation. So we all know inflation makes the dollar today worth less than the dollar 20 years from now. And it's this incremental thing that just weighs down your retirement. Market volatility, that weighs down your retirement because obviously, there's some dangers there and there's some stress there. Healthcare costs, the biggest expense above and beyond inflation and other types of things you buy, groceries and gasoline, it's going to be healthcare, medications, end-of-life care. Those are big things that weigh it down. And today, one of the biggest things that I'd like to take out of your backpack to detoxify is taxes. And that's why we call it detaxifying your retirement. Plus, I think it just sounds kind of witty. And so detaxifying basically means let's figure out how we can lose that excess drag, that excess baggage in the area of taxes, so that your retirement journey is easier, more profitable, and more thought through.
Yeah, and some of these you can do some things about, which is like healthcare, right? You're going to have costs, but the better you take care of yourself now, the less hopefully you'll have to spend later. I mean, there's always accidents and things, but you can do some things to help yourself out. And like we've talked about on other podcasts, taxes, you can do some things about. So I'm sure that we're going to go through that. So what can we actually do to detaxify?
Yeah. So that's a great point that you make. There are things that we can do. And I also want to point out, and that I want to make this point very clear, it's always a moving target. It seems like every 2, 4, 8 years, depending on who's in the House and who's in the Senate and who's in the White House, they keep moving the borders of the, it's like you're playing football and they keep changing where the end zone's going to be,
Exactly.
And you're constantly out of bounds and then you kind of have to relive your life. So that's key. So when the Trump tax plan came out, I assumed it would be a little bit better for someone like myself as a business owner. And it turned out to be worse for me, and better for, let's say, my parents and perhaps better for other folks. And that's the difficulty, is that there is this legislative risk, if you will, with taxes. And so let me cover some broad, here's what you can do. Here's a conversation you should be having with your CPA, your tax preparer, your enrolled agent, and your advisor to make sure that you're doing all that you can. And I'll start with the practical and specific, and then I'll kind of expand it and kind of go more general as to the why that you should be doing this. And so the number one thing I want to talk about as far as detaxifying your portfolio is Roth conversions. And so you probably are aware of what's the difference between a Roth and a traditional, correct?
Correct. And we've covered that a little bit in the podcast in the past.
Yeah. And the way I can explain it that you can remember, and if someone asks you or if you get confused, imagine the government comes to you and you're a farmer, right? And you say, so they go and they say, look, Eric, would you like to pay taxes on the seed or would you like to pay taxes on the harvest? Mm-hmm. And you get to choose. So if you pay taxes on the seed, that is a Roth IRA. You're not going to pay taxes on the harvest. Okay. With a traditional, you're not paying taxes on the seed at all. But when the harvest comes out, you're going to take a little bit off of the field. And every time you take a little bit out, you're going to pay a little bit of taxes. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, well, which one is better? Which one is going to be the right thing for you to do? And I've got a blog actually that I can link to in the show notes. But my philosophy is that we just don't know. If you look back at all of the different legislation that gets passed, that moving target, you see that we had 56% tax rates, in the Eisenhower days. And then we see that JFK, a Democrat, reduces taxes. And then we see them high again with Carter, and then they're reduced by Reagan. And it's even more complicated than just the rates of taxes, but also the reward system, if you will. The tricks that you're able to play with the government to rearrange where the money is in the pocket. And because of that, and I go further into it in the blog, I'm of the opinion that we should consider having 50-50 in a Roth and 50-50, or basically 50 in a Roth and 50 in a traditional IRA or 401k when you come to retirement or when you come to take income. And the rationale behind that is you are diversifying, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can diversify and have a little bit here and a little bit there, you're gonna experience the benefits of both, not to the full. And the reason I share that is because I look at someone like, say, my father, who was a surgeon. And he finds himself working. He's making a lot of money as a surgeon, so he puts everything into a traditional. He retires traditionally. You'd say, oh, okay, he's going to retire and not live off quite as much of earnings. Well, the reality is my dad hit 70 years old, and he's still working. He's like, hey, I enjoy what I do. I'm having a good time. I'm going to keep on working. But so the traditional IRA worked out for him pretty well, considering the fact that he was able to take all those tax breaks as he put his money away. Mm-hmm. The downside, of course, now is when he has to take money out at 70 and a half, which we'll talk about in a minute, well, he's paying a lot in taxes. So having 50-50 for someone like my father, it was going to hurt more if he had Roth contributions when he was a high earner, but it would hurt less now. And having that conversation and understanding why you're having pain now, financial planning is a lot about delaying your gratification. It's kind of like eating your vegetables. You may not necessarily like your vegetables, but you can't just have mashed potatoes. Well, mashed potatoes would be the vegetables. Are potatoes a vegetable?
Nah, it's starchy. I don't know if they count, but Brussels sprouts are vegetables and I can't stand them.
Oh, see, I love Brussels sprouts. Of course, I cover them in bacon, but I think we're a little off topic here now. The point is if you look at that plate, that pie chart, everybody looks at their pie chart and like, oh, I got large cap, I got small cap, I got, whatever cap. That's great, and that's very important. But another thing you should look at from diversification is what type of tax qualification or non-qualification, for that matter, that your portfolio has, because taxes are the tail that wags the dog. And I would shoot for a 50-50, having a 50-50 split when you get to retirement, because you don't know. Will tax rates be higher? Will my income be lower? Traditionally, people say go with the traditional, but now the tide is turning to say, no, 100% Roth. I think both are wrong. Just like saying all large cap or all small cap are wrong. Mm-hmm. We don't know the future. So Roth conversions then, what are Roth conversions? Well, if you're a young person right here, right now, okay, and you have a 401k, I bet you if you call your plan administrator, you talk to somebody in HR, you probably have a 401k that has both a traditional and a Roth feature. And that is awesome. That's relatively new. Mm-hmm. But what it basically means, it's much like a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA in terms of when you pay taxes. If that's the case, let's work now on making sure that we target that 50-50, okay? So that when we get to retirement age or income taking age, we have both types of pockets to take money out of. However, a lot of us, I'm 45 years old, and Roth 401ks are new enough that, I've already got a head start on traditional. So what do I do if I've got a big traditional IRA and a small little baby Roth IRA? Well, out of their largesse, the government says, hey, we love you, Ray. We want to take care of you. So here's what we want you to do. Or here's an option for you. You can take money out of your traditional IRA pocket and put it into your Roth pocket. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, great. That sounds fantastic. And then I never, have to worry about paying taxes on the Roth again. Yeah. But you got to pay taxes when you go from traditional to Roth. Oh, okay. So I'll take money out of my traditional IRA, have it withheld, and pay my Roth taxes, right? No. You have to transfer it. Let's just say it's $100,000 in my IRA, and I transfer all of it to my Roth IRA. The taxes that I have to pay, and I'll make up a number and say it's $15,000, cannot come out of that traditional IRA. It has to come out of your savings. It has to come out from cash you've got laying around somewhere. So the reason that we're doing this is so that we, can pay taxes now and not have to pay taxes later. But keep in mind, you got to have the money to pay those taxes. Mm-hmm. And the other reason that we're doing this is because our concern would be that when we get to 70 and a half, a traditional IRA, a traditional 401k, the government's like, look, it's been fun. You've had this free ride. You haven't paid taxes on all this growth and earnings. Now we want you to start taking money out. And so that's called an RMD, a required minimum distribution. Mm-hmm. And some people know this, some people don't. So I'll just review it quickly. It forces you to take money out. And then, of course, if you're taking money out, you're going to start paying taxes at the ordinary income level. Well, if you've done a little bit along the way, I'm not saying you want to take all 100,000, but you want to take a little bit every year out of your traditional and put it into your Roth and feel that pain now. It means less pain at 70 and a half. And doing that will help to de-taxify your retirement when you're finally ready to start taking income.
All right, so let me ask you a question. If you've got money coming back from taxes, let's say you did great planning, you've got your income tax refund, you're going to get back $5,000. Just say.
Okay.
Can you then take that $5,000 that you got back, since that is quote unquote cash in your pocket, and then figure out how much you could convert for that $5,000 from your IRA to your traditional IRA to your Roth IRA? Is there a pretty easy calculation to be able to say, okay, I've got $5,000 I can spend toward a conversion. That's going to allow me to convert $63,000 from my traditional to a Roth. Does that work that way?
That's exactly right. But the only way you can do that is if you have a proactive relationship with your tax preparer, CPA, accountant, whatever it is, and your financial advisor. And that's a really great point, because ultimately, if you have that forward look, then you can make that change before you file your taxes. And that's the key. Once you press the submit button, or once you put it in the mail, you get the $5,000 back that you just filed your taxes. You're going to have to amend and redo it again. So that's a good point. Being proactive, you know that you're going to be expecting $5,000 back. We can zero that down. We can say, all right, now that I know I've got that $5,000, I'm going to create more income, taxable income. How am I going to do that? I'm going to take money from the traditional pocket, call it ordinary income, and put it into the Roth pocket.
Got it.
And so, and that amount of how much you want to convert is going to be based upon, well, how much money do you want to pay in taxes this year? Because you have to pay it out of pocket, so to speak.
Gotcha. So the question is, I guess, how much should you be converting every year?
Yeah. And the answer, and it's kind of that default answer that frustratingly I give so often, is that it depends. It really depends a lot on your expectations for, what you made last year, what you have to pay those taxes this year, and also, too, what you're expecting to pay in taxes or in making income next year. Because if you've had a banner year, if you're in a business that gives bonuses or pays based on performance, it may not be a great year this year to pay taxes. And it also depends, as with the Trump tax laws, a lot of those write-offs, a lot of those things that we used to be able to do as business owners or as even employees who have perhaps some 1099 income, they've disappeared, the exemptions and so forth. And so if that's the case, then it depends. But let me give you an example. One of my clients was about 66 years old and lived off of non-qualified funds for about 3 years. It wasn't a lot of fun. but he was able to defer his IRA all the way to 70 and a half. And he was also able to defer his Social Security until he was 70 as well. And so because there was a plan in place, as he saw his non-qualified funds starting to go down because he was spending them down, he's thinking to himself, my portfolio in a whole is growing, but this one account just, we're really eating into it. And I explained to him, reiterated to him again, here is what you'd be paying if you turned on the same amount of income from Social Security and from your IRAs. Sure, you might have more in this one particular account, but the government would have much more in their pocket. And so that kind of proactive planning like you're talking about can just save us from a world of hurt. And what's neat about Roth conversions is you can start early. You don't have to wait till you're 67. A lot of times, or 66 in this case, a lot of folks do that. A lot of folks are like, okay, now what? And they've got this imbalance, if you will, with lots of traditional, very little to no Roth. And so we start that conversion process, and it's kind of hard to explain to folks and give them all of the features and benefits. But once the light goes on, it means a much more efficient retirement, especially 70 and a half and beyond. But that's a concept that every single one of us could be doing if we're not already contributing to a Roth and traditional 401k now. It's something that you can do to get yourself into balance by the time you come to retirement day.
And I know that each person is going to have their own situation, right? We've talked about it. Everything's individualized. But because of the fact that you're saying that the Roth IRA grows tax-free, right? You're not paying taxes on it when you're withdrawing it. Why not convert a large sum or everything into a Roth instead of it being in a traditional?
I would say that that's probably one of the bigger debates out there right now in terms of financial planners looking at it and saying, hey, it's only going to be worse. There's one particular IRA guru, and that is his thought process is that taxes are only going to go higher than they are from today. But we've been saying that for a while. It's kind of like people saying taxes are always going to be higher in the future are kind of like the same people who are saying the market's going to crash. Eventually they're right, and I'm one of those people. There's going to be a correction and, doomsday, sky is falling. Eventually there will be pullbacks. Eventually taxes will go higher, but are you sure that they're going to be higher on the day that you retire? And so I can see the case for someone to do some conversions, especially if you're 65, because there's some extra exemptions and so forth. I don't want to get in the weeds about it. To do big Roth conversions in this new Trump tax code, awesome, go for it. But trying to end up with 100% Roth may not necessarily be the best for you in the future, especially if you're contributing, especially if you have that chance to take the tax break now. Those folks I would recommend. And also, too, every time I tell my clients to do this, to split their contributions going forward 50-50 or to do a conversion, I'm always afraid the phone's going to ring and the CPA or their tax preparer is going to be mad at me, because your CPA and your tax preparer, they tend to be all about maximizing this year. And I understand that. They want to save you the maximum amount of money, and they're, crossing every I, dotting every I.
We know what you mean.
Crossing. Yeah. See, that's why I couldn't be a CPA. I can't do that right. But the thing about CPAs is they're experts in accounting, they're in auditing. They're looking at the past, right? And so what we add is in the financial planning realm is we're looking at the future, and we're trying to make sure that we are planning ahead. I would say the CPAs do that, but that's not their focus. And I would also agree that probably financial planners aren't really, focused on making the most of this particular tax year, because that's kind of out of it's already happened. So that teamwork between the two is so key about that. And I still hold that the combination of 50-50 Roth and traditional makes the most sense, because we're talking about something that's unknowable in the future. Yeah.
And I know you've really focused on Roth conversions today, but is there any other tips that you want to cover?
Yeah. The whole idea behind Roth conversions, and that's a good question, because I'm being very specific on what you can do. But why you're doing it is really to diversify the buckets of money that you have. Okay. So you're going to have money that is you can get to, and you're being taxed as you go. That's non-qualified. You're going to have Roth. You're going to have traditional. But there's another reason And the other reason is because when you go to take pension income, that complicates your taxes because oftentimes you're forced to take your pension at a certain age. That's only 5-6% of the population. I work with quite a few people who have them. But then there's another pension that we all have, and that's Social Security. And Social Security has complicated tax implications because it becomes part of a formula called provisional income. And Social Security can be taxed at different rates depending on your combined provisional income. Now, before you fall asleep at the wheel listening to me talk about provisional income and Social Security, here's the very cool thing. We have software that produces what we call a tax map. And that tax map will show you and help you discover your effective marginal rate so that you'll be able to say, okay, here's why I'm going to take Social Security here, and I'm going to take my IRA contribution here, and I'm going to live off of this bucket over here. And it's so important because this is all very custom. It's very much every person that I sit in front of has a different story, a different fear, a different goal, and having that conversation and using the software and printing out a report to show what, under these rules, what your tax situation would be is it's very powerful, very eye-opening, and it doesn't really the computer does all our thinking for us, and it spits out the answer, and then we talk about implementation. So
nice. All right, I know we're getting short on time. Is there anything you want to close with today?
Yeah, I would just simply say, do not listen to a word that I say. And here's why. I don't know you, and you don't know me. So it's real important that you speak with somebody, that you get personalized advice. I don't want to give you some tax advice not knowing you. I want to describe to you some of these financial planning principles. But, if you'd like to know more and you'd like to take a look at that tax planning tax maps that we use, we're going to be putting up on our website a webinar that we do about it. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into the last part, the Social Security implications and how Roth conversions work. And that'll be available on our privadawealth.com website if you'd like to learn a bit more about that.
Yeah, it's always helpful to have visuals there, to be able to walk through. So I'm one of those guys. I've got to have some charts or graphs or visuals so I can see what you're talking about exactly. So thank you, Ray. That's awesome.
Cool.
All right. And thank you all for listening to the Return on Lifestyle podcast with Rey Descalso. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Ray comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Privada Wealth Management, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Return on Lifestyle podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Privada Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider for any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. The following program is sponsored by Privada Wealth Management, which is solely responsible for its content. Advisory services offered through J.W. Cole Advisors Incorporated. Securities offered through J.W. Cole Financial Incorporated. Member IFNRA, SIPC. Privada Wealth Management is an unaffiliated entity from J.W. Cole Advisors and J.W. Cole Financial. The opinions expressed by Rey Descalso should not be construed as specific investment, legal, or tax advice. All economic and performance information is historical and not indicative of future results. Investing may involve the risk of loss of principal. Any tax advice on this show is not intended to be used by any person for the purpose of avoiding U.S. federal or state tax penalties that may be imposed on such person, and each listener should seek advice from their tax advisor or legal counsel on topics that arise from the show. Nothing should be construed as solicitation of an offer to buy securities. The preceding program is sponsored by Privada Wealth Management, which is solely responsible for its content.